Yes, welcome back to Coast. You are with, well, we're not with the original people anymore. We've cut Daniel Kerr. Bye-bye, Daniel. We've got rid of him. We've got rid of Travis King as well. He's on the outer at the selection table, somewhere where I'm very used to being. We've flicked Travis King off. He is now employed by the West Coast Eagles as our media manager. So we've flicked him off the greatest part of the club, which is this podcast. And it's just me. But I am the only one returning from last year. But luckily enough, we have had a new blood step into some shoes. I'd like to welcome and introduce the newest member of the Coast to Coast family, which is a very big family, Oscar Allen.
Scully, thank you very much, mate. Very similar to the on-field selection table, late call-up. It's good to be here, starting a little bit later in the year than what I'd anticipated when I first found out about being a part of the show, but nevertheless, it's great to be here.
Are you excited about doing this? Because I know you do have, I don't like calling them aspirations, but you've got an interest in media and doing other things other than just footy. Is this just a stepping stone to something bigger and better? You're gonna leave me in your wake?
Oh, I'm hoping not. I'm trying to hold on to your tail. Obviously, later stages, you're probably going to expand your horizons post-football into media areas. And if you can drag me along with you on the back of your boat, I'll go with you as far as you can take me.
All right. Well, this should be a bit of fun. Coast to Coast last year was quite analytical. We spoke about games week by week. We tried to give the fans a little bit of an insider's view into the footy club, into some of the decisions that were made around game day and coaching decisions and why we did certain things and what we thought about it, really. So we're going to kind of continue down that lane, but we're on the Gold Coast. We're no longer at the footy club, and it's not the same year as it ever has been. So I think it's probably going to be some good perspectives. You've got an old, bald, angry backman that has seen a fair bit and probably has a little shaded views on some things. And you've got the young blood in Oscar Allen who, look, you're a forward, but you do like to dabble a bit in the back line, don't you?
Yeah, I think the back line, the energy the boys have down there is great. But, mate, I'm not going to say forwards are better than backs or backs are better than forwards. But
well, you couldn't say forwards are going to be better than backs.
No, I couldn't. No. I'm actually dabbling in the midfield as well, so I'm getting a feel of all the areas. All I can say is the mids are comprehensively the third best line at the club, and that's a fact. And you can ask anyone at the club, and they will agree to that.
Mate, yeah, so we're going to have young and old views on things, so we're just going to have a bit of a chat, bring you guys, the listeners, inside the hub. But before we get to the hub, what's the last 3 months been like for you? Let's call it 3 months since round one. Round one was pretty normal. We had a preseason, had round one. Fair bit started going on in that week leading up to round one, and it was like, well, are we going to have a season here? Played round one, had a good win against Melbourne, and then we just stopped. What's it been like for you?
My personal experience of it is been a little bit different from some other people. Obviously, the preseason, by the time round one comes, it's been 3-4 months of really hard grinding. From a football perspective, I'd been off an interrupted preseason, so I hadn't really had the miles in my legs of training load. So the break for me was probably the best thing for my body. I got 3 months of good, solid training in. But as you said, I suppose, unknown of whether we were going to come back. Would there be a full season? What's going to happen? There were definitely times in that's 12 weeks basically when I was almost certain we wouldn't be getting back out into the field this year. So, as I said, it's just great to be back here, and I think it's something that a lot of the guys aren't taking for granted, the fact we're able to come play footy. And I think with everyone coming over to this hub, it's probably been a positive. I feel like if we weren't in this situation where we went from no footy back to this, there wouldn't be as endorsing of we wouldn't have been as accepting as a playing group to move away for a month. I don't know what your perspectives on it are, but that's the way I'm thinking of it as a young player anyway.
Yeah, mate. Like, I think the whole time through we've had to be very flexible, and there's been a lot of I have at times been a little critical of no one in particular. I think, that sports journalism and the media industry in general has had to speculate a lot in the last 3 months. There hasn't been any action to commentate on, which is, that's why sports journalism exists. It's to report on sport and report on matches and teams, and none of that's been happening. So, looking from the inside out, it's been a little frustrating seeing a lot of the coverage. For us, we've had to deal with it from a practical sense. Like, this is our life. This is what we do. And a lot of the coverage has been, that's their jobs as well, the media and journalists. And I understand COVID's impacted people in ways, people have lost jobs, people have lost lives, more than jobs. So it's been just a weird time. But for us as footy players, we've had to look at it from a practical sense, which is, like I said, this is our job. So we've had to really assess how that's going to play out, because that's what we do for a living. So from an the older person's point of view, it's been something like I've never seen before. But the biggest thing I've taken out of it is just being flexible. Things have changed every week, every day. Even where we see ourselves now in the hub, we still don't know when we're leaving. We haven't had an update on that. There's some guys with family, including myself, including a lot of staff. Most of us had planned to get a lot of the family to come over, but probably with that unknown, it's been difficult to plan around that. But that's been like that the whole time. You haven't really been able to plan for anything. You just had to sort of go with the punches, so to say, and just, see where it all lies, which has been interesting.
Yeah, I think one of the more interesting things about this whole scenario is, as a younger player, you're probably more in the senior player circle, so you may be in a couple of group chats with older guys. Obviously, you're a member of the AFLPA, so you have a lot to do with the bigger names in the AFL industry and how everything was working. But from a young player's perspective, throughout a lot of the time, the first time I was found out about coming back to training or that there was a potential season would be through media leaking it. It was very interesting to find out what's happening with my job, my livelihood, through a third, I suppose, source. Like, I wasn't finding out from the football club. I was finding out on Instagram because...
Well, to put that in perspective, right, like, hopefully there's people listening that don't play footy, and there's people with normal jobs out there, and I say that, in the nicest way. Footy isn't a normal job. It's publicly covered by every media outlet in the country. And for you, a young 21-year-old to be finding out what you're meant to be doing with your life via another source other than your employer, because our employer, West Coast Eagles, our players, we didn't know some things that have been happening. Like, it's just been happening so quickly. It's no one's fault. I just think that's been lost a little bit in the coverage publicly. It's like, well, a lot of the coverage has been around well-paid elite athletes, get on with it a little bit. For us, it's perspective for us. I mean, it's what we do. So I think you've handled it pretty well, mate. It's difficult to be able to get the right messaging across for 18-year-olds. We've got 18-year-olds on our list, and we've got 33-year-olds on our list. So everyone's in a very different stage of their life, and someone needs no basis. An 18-year-old's not going to be able to go through information that high level, probably senior players need to know. So really delivering that message with different things that have happened has been difficult at stages between the PA, so Players Association, coaches, our footy club, the AFL. There's a lot of different bodies a lot of moving parts that have got to come together to make it happen. But we have got here. We are on the Gold Coast in the hub. We did make it.
Yeah, made it. And we're playing footy, which is the main thing. We're back out there. Not playing as well as we would have hoped, but we've started, and there's only room to build from now. So
I told you not to talk about that game. We weren't going to talk about the game this week. No, we will touch on the game moving forward. But I thought maybe to start with, we'd give you guys, the listeners, a bit of an insight into, I guess, what's actually been happening. I did think about, before having a chat today, there's been stuff out in the public about, I guess, the hub and no surfing, no golf, no fishing. It's something that keeps getting asked. But I thought maybe we could speak about some different stuff that we've been doing, like from, probably the Friday before we left.
Yep.
In terms of bringing some stuff to the club, and then kind of how that process has gone, just to give everyone a bit of an insight of how it's gone down. So Friday before, we were leaving Monday. Friday before, what did we do there?
We had training, but we weren't sure. Obviously, with
big shipping container came to the club.
Yeah, big shipping container, but we weren't sure whether these things would get ticked off or not yet. So you were on a limb whether you wanted to bring over some items that you may or may not be allowed to use. So some bikes, golf clubs, surfboards, the likes of it. Guitars were packed up and shipped over. I think some of them were shipped over on the Freo, the shipping container. Obviously, for those who don't know, we're staying in the same resort as the Freo players, so bumping into them every day has obviously been an interesting challenge and seeing how they go about it. But yeah, back to Friday week prior, we packed up our stuff, came in on the weekend, spent a bit of time with our family and loved ones.
On the weekend, did you feel like you were packing up your life, or was it just packing your bags for a trip?
Well, again, without an end date, it's kind of like, am I going for 4 weeks? Am I going for 6, 8? I don't know how long I'm going for. What do I need? I packed almost everything I could. Brought 2 suitcases, 3 carry-on bags.
I was walking around my house, like I literally did a search in every room in my house, and I was just looking for expletive word that I'd use. I was just looking at something like, oh yeah, I'll use that. I was just chucking it in a bag, walking around the house.
Yeah. No, it was a strange.
I've never been away for that long.
Nah. Well, it was a very strange time. I've only just moved out of home as well. So I think it's compounded by the fact that you weren't, obviously, for those who don't know, under the normal AFL protocols, we weren't allowed to visit people that we didn't live with, even family members. So I wasn't able to say bye to mum and dad, brother, sister, family from basically 2 months before we left. So I haven't seen my family for a couple months.
Yeah, the return to play protocols came into place. So I think it was about 6 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. Once we came back to full contact, we had government exemption to train with contact, where the rest of society couldn't do that, and very appreciative to be able to do that from the all governments around Australia. That's basically a full national deal, and that's why that came into place. Sometimes, like when you think about it, like I think some boys were a bit unsure as to why it was in place and why we couldn't see anyone. Like we were pretty much back in stage 5 lockdown, weren't we? We couldn't see anyone. We couldn't leave our house unless you needed to fill your car up, go to the pharmacy. Essential work, basically.
Yeah, and as you said, I do understand why they've done it. And as a football society, I suppose we're all really thankful for the government to bring in these initiatives and working closely with the AFL, because people in society are still social distancing, using that term, to keeping 1.5 meters away. And obviously, when we're doing contact training and playing against each other on the weekends, we aren't social distancing. Obviously, when the game's going on, we're taking measures around that to keep some distance, but we're getting really close and risking a higher chance of transmission. So we're doing all the things we can to try and ensure that we don't have it in the first place, because if someone does get it, the tough thing is going to be if one player does get it, it will spread pretty quickly. Yeah,
so along with the, I guess, locked down and back inside before we left, there was and has been a lot of measures at the footy club, keeping us all separate. So one of those has been training in groups of 7. So unless it's main training, we had maybe 2-hour stretch twice a week where we could all train together, all be together, all tackling. Contact was allowed. Other than that, no contact, and we're in groups of 7 players plus a coach. I found that section really interesting, and that's carried over here to the Gold Coast. We're at the footy club, all 45 players, but we pretty much had the footy club sectioned off into quarters. You had big workmen bunting running down the middle of rooms. You couldn't get prepped in the same room as another group. You couldn't cross over. Had to go a certain way around the club. It was just so weird because, as footy players, we're routine based. So to go back into a workplace where 2 months prior you could do whatever you want, walk wherever you go, it felt like we were quite restricted.
Logistically was a nightmare, and I'm glad I wasn't the one planning it. And one of the other tough things was we do obviously have the brand new facilities there, but we had such an advanced level of facility that other clubs didn't. But to keep it fair, although we had areas which were big enough to cater to the whole 45 with us still separated, we weren't allowed to remain in the same room. So there was a group of players who had their change rooms in the pool. So by the side of the pool, they had their stuff. Another group had theirs out on the field, another one in the gym, I think one upstairs in the cardio room. So there was a lot of moving around and shifting, and you just needed to be, as you said, adaptable and being able to go with the flow, I suppose. It's all out of our control, and the main outcome was just to get us to where we are right now to be able to play games of footy.
Right. So we're on the Gold Coast now. We're into our second week over here. Let's speak about the first week. Got over here. We're effectively we're in a 5-star resort. This is the AFL and the club together with the PA. They've put together a great hub. Footy wasn't going to start if we stayed in WA, and we've moved over here to kick the season off. And yes, we've sacrificed a bit, but people move away for their jobs all the time. There's families that are missing out, but again, we're not gone forever. So yeah, I think overall, like you said, it's a logistical nightmare, but the guys that have been involved in putting it all together, it's been unbelievable. I think like the facilities here when we got here, incredible, right?
Yeah, and I think the best thing about it from the perspective of someone that's been here from the start, which is only a week ago, but how actively not only the AFL but the resort has been to listen to some of our, I suppose, requests for some alterations, whether that may be allowing us to train out on the ground, go in the gym together, swimming pool, recovery services, the food, it's improved. Everything has just gotten better from our time at the hub and become more comfortable, making it more as though as we're staying here for a prolonged period rather than just an away trip.
Well, it's always going to happen as well, right? Like it's never happened before. So how do you plan for something that no one's ever done before?
Yeah.
Like I've found the same thing. It's just been improving every day because we're learning. And that's the difficult thing about it is there's no experience to draw on specifically. Everyone goes through different things in their life that you'll be able to draw on hardship and use some mental strategy to deal with, I guess adversity, but specifically being in a hub, in a team, sharing with another team. We're still split up from Freo. Freo are in this, it's a hotel, right? It's a resort, but it's a hotel. You got a convention center attached, and it's a big resort hotel attached to a golf club, but it's still just a hotel. They're just on different levels to us.
Yep.
So we see them every day, pretty much.
Yeah, every day in the lifts, just walking around. But there have been measures taken to keep us separate. So they're basically on the second floor, all their activity rooms, all their meeting rooms. We're on the bottom floor, all our activity rooms and meeting rooms. So it's not like we're spending every hour of every day together. You might bump past 2 or 3 players a day and just say good day or keep your head down and walk the other way.
So you're not shouting fly for your coffee at the barista downstairs?
He actually wanted to get me one this morning, but I had to tell him I was busy.
Oh, okay.
Talking about being busy this morning, Scully.
Yes.
Recently lifting restrictions.
Yes.
So as we mentioned earlier, the big talking point in the media was fishing, golf, surfing. The 3 main activities that players were pushing for to be getting exemptions to doing, they were lifted last night.
Yes, they were. And there's been a lot of coverage around that because on face value, and I reacted the same way when I read it, like AFL players aren't allowed to go fishing, surf, play golf. It's like, well, how about you just don't play golf and don't fish and don't surf? Like just hang out for a bit.
It's not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world, but I think looking at it more holistically, it's a mental thing. It's like, most of the country now, restrictions have been lifted, can not do what they want, but, within reason and acting safely. It's like, you can't do these things, boys. And I think that was probably the sticking point for it. It was like, well, just let us do it. I don't think everyone's surfing every day, playing 20 rounds of golf in a week.
It's that old theory, you don't, until you're told you can't do it, or now all of a sudden I want to do it. I don't know how many blokes at the club have ever asked me to go play a round of golf, but
I've literally never been invited once.
Never been invited once to play golf with anyone else. In the last 12 hours, I've had 16 different text messages saying you want to play 9 tomorrow, where no one's played golf before. These guys are hacking with their dad's clubs they've borrowed. Same with surfboards. Jacko Nelson snapped the first surfboard he ever owned this morning.
I was going to mention that. He's snapped his board first surf, but he does surf back home.
Not well, but...
No, not well. No, I thought that was a given. I didn't think we'd have to explain that. But I did want to sort of stress that as a footy club, we are trying to make this as homely as possible. And with that comes trying to do activities that you normally do. So we're hoping that, you're exactly right, we're hoping that not every player goes out and plays golf for their day off, because I don't play golf. I don't fish either. So I'm not going to go fishing because I'm on the Gold Coast and it's a holiday.
Yeah.
We're still here to win.
Yeah, I think that was the main point that's been reiterated ever since the restrictions have been lifted. Whatever you do in your normal week, you should still be doing. If you don't play golf because your back pulls up sore, don't play golf because we've got a game of footy on the weekend. We've got to win,
Yeah.
We're here to play footy and win games of footy, and that's the perspective, and that's where the whole football club is coming from. And I think that's what's really getting pushed across to us in the last week or so.
Okay, here's a curly one, or maybe a bit of a hard-hitting one. If we're here to win games of footy, how do you assess the weekend's game and how we performed?
A huge disappointment. I think obviously being out there, I have a different perspective on it than other people. I don't know how it looked on TV, but on face value, I felt like we were beaten on the inside in the contested ball and they were sharper than us. We're not blaming anything. We're here and we got to deal with it. It's not an excuse that we're in a hub and we're moved over. We've been here for a week. If we haven't had enough time to adapt to conditions, that's on us. If we want to get better at working in the dew, go do some extra touch at 7 o'clock at night if you want to with one of the coaches.
Mm-hmm. I did see you out there last night, Oscar.
Yeah, grabbed JK and took him out there with one of the coaches, just getting the touch right for the weekend.
It's a bit different. The climate here is different.
Yeah,
it's a very important point you made. Like there's not one excuse we'll make. Gold Coast was. I thought Gold Coast, like I didn't play, so it's a little easier for me to say. I just thought they played bloody well. We didn't play well, but that's not why we lost. They played really well, and they were up for the fight. And I don't know, you hear a lot of coverage and a lot of reasons why things happen, but a lot of the time, if you don't win the contested part of footy, and that's not winning contested ball, and Matty Priddis type. Get in and under and whip it out to your teammates, and that's why you win. It's everything. It is the Matty Priddis stuff, but it's the one-on-ones in the forward line, one-on-ones in the back line. Just beating your man, really. And I thought Gold Coast beat their man more than we did, and that's why they won.
Yeah, and I think especially the way we normally play football in dry conditions back at home, where we're a very slick style of football, we're a very skillful team, and I think when you play with guys for so long, you see Gaffy on the wing and you think Gaffy's going to take this cleanly, I'm off. And I take off to get the next possession and he fumbles and takes him half a second longer than it normally would. Instead of running forward with me, my man goes to the ball and then outnumber us at the contest. I think that was something that hurt us personally, us probably thinking we were going to be cleaner and sharper than what we were. And Gold Coast waiting around for an extra half a second in case a mistake did happen, which tended to happen more often than not when you saw the game on the weekend.
Yeah, it was a tough one to watch, and definitely not sugarcoating at all. I think we've been pretty honest. So it pretty quickly shifts to the next week, though. It doesn't matter we're on the Gold Coast hub. It's the same when we're at home. If you play poorly and you don't do what you're meant to have done, and that's not winning. Like I just don't think we played like we would have liked to have played. So I think sometimes it's easier to move on from a loss like that than it would be sometimes even a win. You get carried away with how good you're going when you win, but when you lose like that, it's very easy to go, right, switch on. Not switch on. Not saying we weren't switched on. Can't speak for everyone else, but yeah, I think footy's a wonderful game. You can look to the next week very quickly and redeem yourself with your actions quickly, and that's by training during the week. But in the end, you're judged by how you play, and you can very quickly turn things around, and I like that. And we've got every opportunity to do that because we've never been closer together ever than what we have been on the hub.
Absolutely. And I like the point you made about winning can sometimes sugarcoat it. The silver lining, we lost and got smashed. We get a bounce back, and we're all staying together. So if you want to work on some extras, you want to watch Vision, you can do it whenever you want.
It's never been easier to get better, ever. No.
Agreed. And back to that point, we're here to play football and win games. We're not here to enjoy a holiday and play golf and go surfing. Although if you do that at home, great, do that. Find time for it, but put it around getting better as a footballer and doing your job properly.
All right, that's enough on the game. Don't want to talk about it anymore. I did want to touch on a few more insider stuff that probably people haven't heard too much in the media with the hub setup that we're dealing with here. Food. It was probably one thing I didn't think about too much. Like, we do away trips every second week, so we know what it's like eating in a hotel. The easiest way to feed 45 players plus another 30 staff is a buffet type setup. So we're used to doing that for 2 or 3 days, but try as a listener, try and put yourself in a 18 to not 30-year-old. We won't put yourselves in my shoes, but 18 to 25-year-old sort of player, elite athlete, likes eating food. You've got a buffet set up every night.
Yeah, and a buffet is very dangerous when you're staying over here for a prolonged period because a buffet can easily become 2 main meals, 3 meals a day, every day of the week.
Yeah.
So
they've done it a little bit differently over here because of the restrictions we're still all under. I mean, we all have to be socially distanced within the hotel as well. We're not just, in a hub and we can do what we like. We're doing this podcast all separated, sitting apart from each other. Team meetings are apart from each other. Meal times, you can't sit any more than, 3 or 4 people at a table. We've all got to be socially distanced there. And the actual meals are the first sort of 3 or 4 days are quite funny.
They're tough to look at.
Yeah, well, it's not funny, but they were doing buffet, but it was every individual piece of food was in a plastic container or a plastic something or other to decontaminate it. So,
So basically, picture you go for lunch and you just want to get a chicken salad wrap. And you go down and you grab your wrap, which is in a cling.
Usually you'd have your wrap, you put your chicken in it, your cheese, tomato, done, put it in toaster, done.
So you get your wrap, which is in a sealed plastic container.
Yep.
You put that plastic container in the bin. You then go to the meat section and grab individual bit of chicken, open that up, put one individual bit of chicken, then get the next container. And so big boy like yourself and me, 3 or 4 bits of chicken, that's 3 or 4 extra plastic containers. And then you go over to the salad and you get the tomatoes, that's a container, and then the lettuce, then your carrot. So we're about 10 containers now. And then you want to get sauces, but we can't share a big sauce bottle. So you get the little squirty ones.
Yes.
3 or 4 of those. This whole process, firstly, not great for the environment.
Well, yeah, I think definitely firstly.
Most importantly.
Yeah, it was an inconvenience, but it wasn't really that big a drama.
No.
But firstly, environment, but yeah. A lot of boys made the point, like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. And it got to the stages where we are able to get takeout food and get takeaways. We aren't allowed to eat in. We can order, get them to deliver it here out the front.
Uber Eats has been getting a bit of a work.
Uber Eats getting a smacking. But a lot of guys were thinking that's the best option, not only for themselves because there wasn't, as you said, no buffet style. There wasn't a great variety that if guys don't normally have rolls during the day, what are they going to eat? So they'll go out and buy sushi or something else like that. But as I said earlier, the AFL have worked really hard to listen to some of the suggestions we've put up to them.
And quickly, right?
Yeah.
Like I reckon it was a day or two and they had plastic containers gone. Now it's a buffet style, but it's served by people in masks with gloves, hotel staff. It's not ideal, but it's not, I just think everything that's been put together has been fantastic. I really can't fault it. We got your little nuances that is different to everyday life. I mean, it's gonna be. We're in a different state. We're living in a resort, so it's gonna be different. But it's fine. The food's good.
Yeah,
I like it. You get to sit around with teammates.
Real school cafeteria vibe where they're scooping a little bit of potato and then meat for you, and you're asking for a little bit extra, and they're saying come back for your next go if you want some more. But it's good. Yeah, I'm enjoying the food aspect. Has been tough at the start, especially for someone like me who I eat quite a lot. Obviously, developing in my body and trying to put on weight was difficult, but
lucky they've put the skin fold calipers away since COVID's come
on.
On.
Just the weight scales, which I think not only myself, a lot of other boys are pretty happy with.
What are you looking at me for?
I'm generally pretty good on the skin folds. I reckon some other players, Nick Nat.
You keep looking at me. You're saying Nick Nat, but you're looking at me.
Will Schofield, Jack Petrocelli, Jacko Nelson, to name a few, would be really happy that
the snap of the surfboard may be weight related rather than ability.
Well, I don't think he could get on the big waves today. He was struggling. He was just sitting underwater the whole time. But on to this week, Brisbane.
No, not onto this week. Cars.
Oh, cars.
No, cars are good. Cars are good. We've got cars to use. Again, I think great. We've got availability of vans. We've got cars, but there's rules. There's rules with everything we're doing. Basically, everything is rule governed. You can do there's really not many things we can't do. We can't go and sit in a restaurant or go and have a beer at the pub, but I just don't know how many guys are doing that during the week anyway. So it's not like it's a huge thing. Cars, we can drive cars and we can pretty much drive them where we like, but you may only have 2 people per car.
Yeah, one in the front driver, one in the back left passenger.
Is that what it is?
It's supposed to be.
That's exactly what I've been doing, so lucky.
Perfect.
They're cleaned every day, like forensically cleaned.
Yeah.
You need to log any person that uses it. You need to log. You need to then antibacterial wipe the whole car.
Yeah.
And if you're 21,
you can't drive.
Basically, hire car insurance policy is, which is fair enough. See some of these drivers around 18, 19, buddy hoons, the Hoons.
Looking at you, Bailey Williams.
They're not allowed to drive. So if you're under 21, they can't drive. So they've got to link up with an older player to drive them around.
Yeah, and which is tough because I can't imagine Will Schofield wanting to go to the Coles with Harry Edwards to get a block of chocolate late at night.
Hey, yeah, you're right. I'm probably not high on my list of things to do.
So
I do like Harry though.
Yeah, Harry's a good young man, but thankfully there are also some vans which we can use. So I think in total we have 16 cars.
Yep.
16 cars and maybe 4 or 5 of them are vans.
Yep.
And vans are allowed 7, I believe.
Yeah, something like that. Yep.
7, so players can hop in.
So there's been some vans rolling down to the local supermarket.
God, yeah, the Coles down the road has been smashed. The sugar and confectionery aisle is bare bones.
Very good. But again, it's just something we just got to be flexible with. I mean, it's fine. It's just guess trying to just let you guys know what's going on over here. It's been fun. There's some good cars to drive actually. Muscle.
Yeah.
I probably won't mention any brands, but I'm sure there's a few good Toyotas lying around somewhere. AFL sponsor.
Smart. Thank you, Scully.
Yeah. So okay. Maybe I don't have anything else from the hub. Do you have anything else in here right now? No. We can move on to next week if you like.
Try and talk about games nights. What we're doing.
Yeah.
We'll move on to next week.
Yeah. Let's finish on games nights. We'll finish on unity. What we're doing is say, even though we're living together, how we're saying unity and connected in the club. So before we do that, this week we are here, as we said, to win games of footy. What's going to go on this week?
Football this week, obviously a big game. We need to bounce back. Poor on the weekend, and we've done with that. We're past that now. Playing and going up against Brisbane, a team that had a really big bounce back year from a couple of years collecting draft picks, shall we say. They're a talented young side. They beat us at the Gabba early last year, probably got us on the hop.
Did you play in that game?
I did, yep. 2 of my first 3 games were against Brisbane at the Gabba.
Wow.
That's a fun fact.
Wow.
Which is pretty bizarre because Brisbane at the Gabba, a lot of teams don't even have that once a year.
No, but we have played them a lot at the Gabba.
Yeah.
And, on history probably says they've got the wood over us.
AFL fixturing.
So, okay, Brisbane, they're your hoodoo team by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
Have you won at the Gabba?
Yeah, won my second game, which was up there at the Gabba. But they played well last week. They got over the top of Freo. It's quite interesting. I haven't got in the car and driven an hour and a half to a ground since probably playing against Mandurah down in Peel a couple of years ago. So I think it will be interesting getting on the team bus with all the boys and heading down there.
Geelong to Melbourne, mate. That's what I cut my teeth on growing up. I was about to say I might play well this week, but I'm probably going to get a game first.
Yeah, well, are we talking about the suspension?
We can talk about it. Well, it's not a suspension, is it?
The possible suspension.
Yes, it's the match review panel. I believe Jeremy will be sitting. We're recording this on a Tuesday. I'm pretty happy to say that we're doing that. Yep. Don't know when it's going to be aired, but we're a couple of hours away from hearing how successful Gov will be at the match review centre. It will be an interesting one, I think. We can't really talk about the incident per se, but I've challenged a few reports.
Yep.
I've also been on the other end of it, reports made against others to do with me, and it's a pretty intimidating process. When you challenge, it feels like you're in a court of law. To be honest, not that I've been in a court of law, but there's a judge, there's a jury, there's lawyers. You have a lawyer. The AFL has a lawyer, so there's a prosecution and a defence, and they're basically pleading their case to the judge and jury. So it's as close to being in trouble with the law as you'll get, and it's a little bit intimidating.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been involved. You seem like you're pretty clean cut sort of player.
I'm pretty squeaky clean. I actually had one last year where someone stomped on me, so I was the victim.
Allegedly stomped, or we know if he did or didn't?
No, he did stomp me. I think he ended up getting away with a fine.
Okay, nice.
Well done to you.
Well, yeah. So we'll see how Gov goes, but yeah, it's just it's a pretty clear cut process now. You can either challenge in 3 areas, whether the incident is low to the body or to the head. I think it's going to be to the head.
Yeah.
And then it's intention and it's the force. So I think the guys will be looking at that, and ideally Gov's playing. I'm going to say best player because he's a backman. Yeah, he's won a couple of best and fairest.
Probably most impactful.
Yeah, he's an influential guy, and sets up a lot of the way we play our footy. He's a very smart player. He's our vice captain. So we definitely want to see him come up against Brizzy on the weekend.
Just on terms of the tribunal, obviously you're someone that's been there and can give a little bit of an insight to people listening that maybe don't know what goes on. So is the person, the victim of the tribunal, is he also there giving a statement, or how does that work?
So to use an example, Clayton Oliver and I, about 3 years back,
Yep.
may have been 15, 4 years back, I was reported for striking Clayton, and we looked at the footage, spoke to myself. Obviously, you get a medical report from both us and the opposing team, and then you build your case. It's like so our case then was, well, I didn't elbow him in the chin. That was basically it, and I was charged with that. And we felt like calling Clayton. It's actually the defence's choice whether to call the defendant or not. No, sorry, I'm the defendant. So, yeah, you can call the witness, being the player that's the infringed upon, if you like. And in that instance, we didn't call him because there wasn't really anything he was going to say to help us.
Yeah, okay.
He probably, not speaking on Clayton's behalf, but anyone's probably not going to go there and say, well, he didn't do this when, I've been charged and there's footage, and probably only going to go bad for, So there's probably not many cases where you're going to call a person, but you can. So I don't think with this one in particular with Gov, I don't think there'll be anyone else other than Gov and the lawyers and the jury. So we'll see how he goes.
Yeah. On AFL in general, what have you thought of the restart to the season? Obviously, very even competition by the looks of it. A couple of teams that were fancied early in the year. Ourselves, GWS, Geelong, obviously the Richmond and Collingwood game. None of them are 2-0. The only team 2-0.
Who is 2-0?
Port Adelaide.
Yes.
I think from memory, they might be the only team that's 2-0. No one else pops in my head, but of the real...
It doesn't look like anything's popping into our producer Jared's head either.
No. Of the premiership fancies early in the season, they're the only team, I suppose, that have started off the season really well. Thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's always an interesting one, the start of the season, because it's important not to... I think probably if you look at the first 3 games, it's important not to lose all 3.
Yep.
If you win 1, lose 2. If you win 2, lose 1, not the end of the world. I mean, 2-1's a great start, but it's important to start well. So teams that are 0-2 will be feeling a lot of the pressure. Teams like us that are 1-1, there's pressure as well. So the fact that no one else is 2-0, again, happy to be corrected there for anyone that's listening.
North Melbourne and Essendon are both 2-0.
There you go.
But yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. I think one thing that an interesting perspective, obviously, at training going into the game, we'll obviously practice the last scratch matches with, I suppose, the so-called ones team against the team that's probably generally the waffle team.
Yep.
How much do you think it plays into the fact that the ones team's obviously probably does have a stronger list than the 2 side, and then the ones are obviously probably coming up against a team that will be stronger than that reserve side on match day. Do you think that has any impact on it?
When you're talking about it, though, you got to be, respectful and remind yourself that every club's doing the same thing. So you probably can't think, well, our preparation was affected or different, or our mindset's different because we're playing the 2s, because everyone was doing that.
That's true, yeah.
Right? So the guys on 2-0, they're all playing against their reserves, and no one's had a different prep. That's been the good thing about this whole process, is no one's been different. And there was a lot of uproar at the time with WA government and Melbourne government not being able to align with contact and return to play protocol, that sort of stuff. But in the end, we want an even competition. And I think we're going to get close to finishing on this one, other than the unity aspect. I'll ask you, do you think winning the flag this year, 2020, would be sweeter, the same as normal, or less than 2019 or 2021, assuming they're normal seasons?
I'm going to go with sweeter for a couple of reasons. Firstly, the amount of resolve you have to take a 10-week break after a prolonged preseason. And for those who don't know how regimented and structured out a preseason is, it's to the minute. You need to have a certain amount of minutes on field. You need to do the exact amount of kilometres over a acute period of time to get a load. And then to have players go away for 10, 12 weeks unobserved is a very tough thing to then come back. Secondly, an aspect which hasn't happened that I can ever remember, every team only plays every team once. So fixturing is almost taken out of the equation. There's no teams have a stronger fixture or a weaker fixture.
Which is spoken about a lot.
Everyone plays everyone once, and it's probably the fairest system that there's ever been.
Do you reckon it'll stay?
I don't think so. I think over our heads with television rights, they want to get as many games, and in the end, it comes down to money and the television rights. They want to put as many games on TV so they can have as many people watching, get as many paid advertisements and earn as much money from it as possible.
Maybe the quality increases though, Oscar.
Yeah, you may say that, but I know it's very tough. I think most fans would want to watch more games than less.
Okay. Well, we're going to end almost on that. You were very busy in the off season. We'll call it the off season, the COVID season. You played in a FIFA tournament, which you won.
Yep, I did.
Well done. Congratulations.
I believe you also played in that tournament. How did you go in it?
I did. I was knocked out first round by the runner-up in the competition. So
you were third best?
Yeah. Second loser.
Second loser.
Yep. I did mention that because we've been doing a bit of Unity stuff, so we'd finish on this. Thursday nights have been, so far, we've had one, but we've got another one coming this one. It's Unity and it's competition night. So we had a FIFA competition between about 30 players.
Yeah, game of doubles.
Yep. How did it go? Because over my time talking on podcasts, people that have listened to me have heard about the FIFA scene at this football club. It's been a part of the fabric for 10 to 20 to 40 years.
Absolutely. Initially, it started off great. I was pretty confident with my run up to the tournament. At the time, I thought I got a good partner in Jackson Nelson.
Yep.
We won the first round, knocked out Jack Petrocelli and Mark Hutchings. Petch is a very good FIFA player. Hutch is not. We knocked him out in the first round 4-0. Somehow, unbeknown to me, came back into the competition.
Wild card
came back into the competition and beat us in the semi-final 1-0.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, a big smack on the chops. Wasn't happy with that at all.
Wow.
A lot of choice language towards Jackson. I'm never playing with him again. He's been kicked out of our FIFA Pro Clubs team because of it.
So who won the overall comp?
Jack and Mark Hutchings.
They won the whole thing.
And they beat Jake Waterman and Jared Brander in the final.
That makes me happy. Sucked in Jake, a forward. Sucked in Oscar, playing in the forward line. You do have a backman's heart though, so I will give you that, but sucked in. And that's about it for Coast to Coast this week. We will have another competition this Thursday.
Yep.
I believe it's been organised. Don't know what it is. Could be pool, could be table tennis.
Table tennis, I'd like that.
Pinball machine.
You guys
Jeez,
are old.
we're living a great life.
You guys are old.
Yes, and Shannon, there you go. Last bit of insider information. We've got a pinball machine. Shannon Hearn is the reigning champion at the moment, which is age dependent.
The GOAT pinballer.
I'm coming second though.
Yeah, I haven't got on it yet. I'm too busy living my life.
You've been with Coast to Coast. We've had a pretty good chat today, Oscar. Thanks for joining us. You want to wrap it up with a final thought?
No, thank you very much. Looking forward to talking to you soon.
Thanks, mate.